The desert wind had teeth that night. It howled across the plains, clawing at the stars and tearing dust from the bone-dry earth. The stagecoach thundered through the blackness, wheels screaming against stone as lightning split the sky in violent flashes. Then impact, a shriek of terrified horses, a crash of splintered wood. The world shattered into chaos and silence. When the dust settled, the desert seemed to hold its breath. A pale hand twitched beneath the wreckage, trembling in the cold moonlight. Clara Monroe, bloodied and pinned beneath a broken beam, whispered a prayer too faint to reach heaven. Her lips were cracked, her voice hoarse. "Please, someone." High on the ridge, a lone rider watched. His coat snapped in the wind, hat pulled low. For a long moment, he didn't move, just another ghost among many. He'd seen death before, left it behind him too many times to count. But then came that sound, a broken voice carried by the storm. "Help, please." The rider hesitated. Then he turned his horse down slope, slow and certain. The desert exhaled, the wind softened, and fate began to move again beneath the rising stormlight. At dawn, the storm broke over Coldwater Pass, washing the world in gold. The sun rose slow and solemn, its light crawling over rooftops patched with tin and barns bleached by years of dust. The windmill creaked in rhythm with the waking town, pulling up water that tasted faintly of iron and hope. Smoke drifted from a few chimneys, lazy and gray. As women stepped out to hang laundry stiff from the night's rain, Coldwater Pass was a place that refused to die, a stubborn dot on the map, carved into the desert by willpower and faith. Its people lived on the edge of miracles and misfortune, whispering stories over coffee about the outlaws who passed through, the drifters who never came back, and the few who did. The sheriff patrolled with weary eyes. The preacher's bell cracked from years of dust and thunder. Every plank, every grave, carried a name worth remembering. Beneath its quiet surface, the town held secrets, debts unpaid, promises broken, hearts that still dared to hope. And though they didn't know it yet, the desert's newest story, a wreck, a woman, and a man with no past, was already making its way home to them. Clara Monroe once had a home filled with laughter, sunlight spilling through lace curtains, a husband's gentle voice reading scripture by the fire. Then fever came like a thief in the night, taking him first, then her peace. Debt followed close behind, stripping away what little she had left, until even the house that held her memories stood empty. For months, she drifted like a ghost, living between grief and prayer. Then one morning, a letter arrived, simple, unadorned, but shining with possibility. "We need a teacher in Coldwater Pass." Those words felt like an answer, a whisper from heaven that maybe she wasn't finished yet. Clara packed what she owned, a Bible, a locket, and a handful of hope, and boarded the stagecoach heading west. The journey was long, cruel, and lonely. She faced nights of howling wind, days of endless dust, and the wary silence of strangers who spoke only in glances. Still, she prayed for courage, for a place to belong again. The horizon stretched wider with each mile, painted with promise, and just when Clara dared to believe that God had heard her, the clouds gathered once more, and fate waited, unseen. Around the bend, the narrow trail twisted between red canyons, slick with the rain that had fallen all night. The driver flicked the reins nervously, glancing toward the black clouds still rumbling above. "Hold tight," he shouted over the wind. But before the words had faded, the ground beneath the wheels began to crumble. One horse stumbled, then another. The coach lurched sideways, the world tilting in a blur of thunder and screams. Clara clutched the seat, praying through clenched teeth as the stagecoach went over the edge. Wood splintered, glass shattered, and the world became a storm of dust and pain. When the chaos finally stilled, the silence was deafening. The horses lay motionless, their reins tangled, their bodies still warm. One passenger groaned once, then went quiet forever. Clara tried to move, but her leg was pinned beneath a shattered beam. Blood streaked her face. Her hat was gone. The air smelled of earth and iron. For a moment, she thought she was already dead, until a ray of sunlight cut through the wreck, landing gently across her cheek, as if heaven itself reached down in pity. Then came the sound, distant at first, then closer, hoof beats, slow, steady, certain, help, or judgment. Eli Thorne had lived most of his life in the shadows. The kind of man towns whispered about long after his horse had vanished over the ridge. He'd ridden with outlaws, traded bullets for gold, and buried too many names to remember. His revolver had earned him food, shelter, and guilt in equal measure. Redemption wasn't a word he used anymore. It belonged to better men, men who hadn't lost their souls along the trail. That morning, he rode the high ridge above Coldwater Pass, the wind tugging at his coat, the sun cutting through the clouds like judgment. Below, the land stretched silent and still until he saw the wreck. Splintered wood, dead horses, the faint curl of smoke. He almost turned away. The desert didn't forgive fools who stopped for ghosts. Then, faint and crazed, came the voice, a whisper barely carried by the wind. "Help her, please." It reached something buried deep in him, something he thought long dead. Eli swung from the saddle, boots sinking in the dust. The driver was gone. Then he saw her, bloodied, trapped, barely breathing. "Hold on," he rasped. "I got you." As he tore the wreck apart with raw hands, purpose returned, painful, human, undeniable. The desert night fell cold and endless, the kind that turned breath into smoke and silence into a weight. Eli gathered what he could find, scraps from the broken coach, twisted branches from a dead mesquite. The fire he built was small but steady, a defiance against the vast emptiness around them. Its flicker painted the wreckage in shades of gold and sorrow. Clara lay nearby, wrapped in his worn trail coat, her face pale against the firelight. Each breath she took seemed borrowed from the wind. Eli knelt beside her, checking her pulse, weak, but still there. She stirred, voice trembling like the flame. "You stayed. Why?" He hesitated, eyes lost in the glow. "Couldn't ride past another soul in the dirt," he said quietly. "Done too much of that already." A faint smile touched her cracked lips. "Then maybe that's enough." Her hand found his, trembling but certain. The kind of touch that asks for nothing but truth. He sat through the long night, keeping the fire alive, gun resting across his knee, her lost wedding ring glinting between his fingers. As dawn bled into the horizon, Eli realized maybe saving one life could save his own. The first light of dawn spilled across the desert, sharp and golden, cutting through the smoke of the dying campfire. Ellie's instincts stirred before his mind did, that low, rhythmic tremor of approaching hoofbeats. Not rescue, not lawmen, bandits, the kind he used to ride with, the kind who never left witnesses. He turned fast, blood still seeping through the bandage at his shoulder. Clara's eyes opened, frightened but clear. "We have to move," he muttered, already hauling her up behind him. His black mare stamped, sensing the danger. "Hold on," he told her, and kicked hard into the sun. Gunfire cracked through the morning stillness. Bullets sparked off stone, slicing through the dawn like thunder reborn. Dust rose in violent clouds as they tore through the canyon, red rock blazing like fire around them. Eli leaned low in the saddle, teeth clenched, his blood leaving a dark trail down his arm. Clara clung tight, her fingers gripping his torn shirt, praying over the sound of death chasing them. A shot grazed his ribs, fire, pain, grit, but he didn't slow. At last, silence fell behind them. The bandits were gone. Clara's tears hit his chest. "Told you we'd make it," he rasped, voice breaking. But the blood said otherwise. By the time they reached the riverbank, Eli was barely conscious. The sun burned high above, its heat unrelenting, and every breath came with the taste of iron. The cabin they found was little more than a skeleton. Half walls, a leaning door, and a roof patch with rusted tin. But it was shelter, and for now, that was enough. Eli stumbled inside and dropped to his knees, blood pooling beneath him. Clara knelt beside him, her hands trembling as she tore strips from her tattered dress. "Don't you dare close your eyes," she whispered, binding the wound as best she could. He tried to laugh, but it came out a groan. "You saved me," she said softly, voice cracking. "You made me believe again." He managed a weary grin. "Guess that makes us even." Then came the sound, slow, deliberate hoof beats. One horse, one man. The last bandit. Ellie's eyes hardened. He checked his revolver, one bullet left. "Stay behind me," he said, steadying himself against the wall. The door burst open. 2 shots roared as one. Smoke filled the cabin, curling like ghosts in the dim light. When it cleared, Eli still stood, barely. Clara caught him as he fell. "Guess. We made it," he whispered. 3 days after the gunfire faded, a search party from Coldwater Pass rode along the riverbank, following a trail of buzzards and broken branches. What they found wasn't death, it was survival. Eli Thorne lay pale as ash, his shirt soaked in dried blood, while Clara Monroe sat beside him, eyes hollow but alive, her hands resting protectively on his chest. When the sheriff reached them, he tipped his head in disbelief. "You're lucky souls," he murmured. Eli stirred weakly, shaking his head. "Not luck," he rasped. "Her asterisk." Back in town, word spread like wildfire, how a school teacher and a drifter had defied the desert, the bandits, and death itself. Some called it a miracle, others called it grace. Weeks later, when Clara stood before the chalkboard in the newly rebuilt schoolhouse, children's laughter filled the dusty air. The sound carried through the open windows, a hymn of new beginnings. Eli stayed long enough to help rebuild the broken coach road, the same path that had nearly claimed them. Then, one dawn, he rode out without a word, leaving behind a letter folded neatly on her desk. "Some wrecks don't break us, Clara, they build what's worth saving." The sun hung low over Coldwater Pass, setting the world ablaze in gold and amber. Clara Monroe stood by the whitewashed fence outside the schoolhouse. Ellie's old had held gently in her hands. Its brim was worn smooth, its crown dusted with the memory of miles, the last piece of a man who had given her back more than life. Behind her, the voices of children rose in laughter, bright and untamed, echoing across the open fields like music carried by the wind. She looked toward the horizon, that endless line where the earth kissed the sky, and for a heartbeat, she could almost see him there, riding into the light. The breeze lifted her hair, warm and soft, whispering of the desert's strange mercy. Then, the voice of the narrator came, quiet and reverent, as if spoken by the land itself. "Sometimes, the greatest rescues happen when two broken souls meet in the wreckage life leaves behind. And sometimes, the ones most lost are the ones meant to lead others home." The light dimmed to dusk. The wind fell still. Then came the question, gentle, haunting, eternal. If you saw someone left behind in the wreck, would you stop? Like, share, and subscribe to Tales of the Wild West, where courage, love, and second chances still ride beneath the endless sky.